the time to
Hey,
join us
Candace, how you
tonight.
doing? Thank you. Thank you for the
I'm
invite.
good. I'm good. I'm good. Of course. Of course. So, can you do us the pleasure of properly introducing yourself? Tell us who is Chris Banks.
Well, again, my name is Chris Banks, local community leader from the East New York, the greater East New York community. Born and raised out here. Lived here my entire life. Started a local nonprofit named East New York United Concerned Citizens, which actually has serviced the aging population, which are seniors, grandmas, grandpops, and also we've done a lot of youth advocacy and advocacy across the board, fighting for the everyday folk here in East New York community for a better quality of life.
Nice. Nice. So, you're doing some really good work then, right? I
Yes,
love
yes,
that.
yes. Hard work.
Hard work, right? Listen,
Hard
I
work.
totally understand being in this community is no joke, especially in East New York. I actually used to live in Brownsville, so I totally understand.
Okay. You're our neighbor. You're our neighbor, not too far. Just over
Yep.
the L train.
All right, exactly. Hop, skip, and a jump. So, I did read a little bit up on you, and so I saw that you were a part of the Block Association. Can you tell us a little bit more about like what exactly is a Block Association and what does it do?
Yeah, block association is basically a group of neighbors basically coming together and saying we want to formalize a union to advocate for issues on our block. I mean, our block association was made up of about 3 blocks, uh, and we had about close to about 60 to 70 homeowners and tenants who were involved. And we dealt with just bread and butter issues, garbage, noise, things that are, the hard issues people don't want to deal with, that are everyday issues that, homeowners deal with or tenants deal with, parking issues, you name it. So we were very effective with that over the years, and Block Association continues to go.
That's that's great because I know like I grew up in the '90s, so like I really only knew the block association when all the block parties happen. It's
Block
like,
parties.
oh, okay,
I,
there those
I
people
figured
are.
that. Yeah, you know what? I was gonna actually talk about the block parties, but I said no, that's so typical. So I said let me go outside the box and talk about the real hard work of
Yes,
dealing with the constituent, the services and neighbors complaining about noise and whatever, the constant
right.
complaints the quality of life issues that exist.
So outside of quality of life, do you guys ever like actually get involved with things like I know there's going to be like mass evictions that are going to start happening in New York because of, COVID-19, the moratorium being lifted. So do you guys ever like
Yes.
get involved in that kind of stuff?
Yeah, look, when I say we are a multi-service organization, we have fought for people in housing court, um, right here in East New York, obviously in Linden Boulevard housing, nature developments throughout East New York. We've been a fighter for the average person who wants a better quality of life, and we've made a lot of headway. We've had a lot of success stories where we've moved seniors out of disgusting situations that were placed on them by nature and their just incompetence, lack of service to their residents. So we've had a lot of victories. I mean, and if going on my Facebook, you've seen how I've advocated and fought
Mhm.
for folks through and through, especially a lot of nature residents.
That's great because so the biggest thing, right, is that a lot of us don't understand where we're supposed to turn in order to get those resources and that kind of help. So, like, how does someone figure out where their block association is, how to contact them? Like, is there like a main hub where you guys are like listed somewhere?
Yeah, most likely, most block associations, if they're active, they're most likely engaged with their local community board. So they can get that information from the local community board as far as who the block association president is and so forth, and meetings, or just a simple number to the block association president. And they should be able to get all that information as to when the meetings take place.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that. I learned a little something new.
That's
All
good
right.
to know that.
Yes, very much so. So, you spoke very briefly about your organization, ENYUC. So, can you tell us a little bit more about it and why it's so significant?
Well, East New York United Concerned Citizens again was formed in the early 2000s by myself and three, four other East New York residents who felt and the need for a non-for-profit that would focus on servicing the senior population in East New York. And everybody knows seniors have been dear and dear to my heart across the board, whether it's giving them advocacy for housing, just fighting for their day-to-day issues, or giving them recreational programming and things of that nature that, seniors need. So we built the organization off of that, and then it spent into providing youth programs, doing a lot of public service events, civic engagement, and I think the core has been advocacy, advocacy, speaking truth to power, and coming back with a victory.
So, do you guys like actually educate folks on like, so this is what you're supposed to do with your rent. If someone comes to your door with a briefcase full of money, you should probably call us as a senior. You know what I'm saying? Before you get
Well,
locked out of
right,
your house all of a sudden, right? So, what
yeah,
kind
we.
of programs and
Mhm.
services have you guys like actually produced to assist in combating poverty?
Well, we've actually one of our programs has been a senior grooming program. Most of the time you have seniors who are dealing with trying to balance their pocketbooks with maintaining their beauty, and also it touches on their self-esteem too. So we created a program in the mid 2000s where seniors get free manicures, free pedicures. The men can get haircuts, and they can just totally eliminate that for that $20-$25 that they would have to pay to get their nails in or get their hair done for the men. So we worked with local barbershops, local nail salons, and that program was very successful, was highlighted, and we actually did a commercial for it. At that time, I was a little bit younger. It was called Chris Banks, My Blank Is, and Your Blank Is, whatever the service your organization was providing. And we highlighted that particular program, our East New York Senior Grooming Program. So that was a service that was offered. And also, we do our housing help service, which to me is invaluable to this community, to my community. Because folks don't know how to navigate the courts, even, especially when they're dealing with nature. And folks sometimes, this is I don't know, there's a Bible scripture, and I don't want to quote it verbatim, but sometimes the mute, you need a voice, and I think we served as that voice for the mute, and fighting for justice, for housing justice for seniors who have been taken advantage of or abused throughout their tenancy in nature on the New York City Housing Authority.
Is it specifically NYCHA? Do you guys assist with like if a senior owns let's say a brownstone, right? And this is kind of sort of leaning into my own story. So my grandmother actually ended up getting a reverse mortgage because some guy like tricked her out of our entire inheritance for our brownstone. And so when
Wow.
she passed away, the building got taken by the bank. So, do you guys assist with those kinds of programs, like teaching seniors don't trust these people who come to you and say that they have this, that, and the third for you?
Yeah, we've had workshops. I mean, we've had workshops on what they call senior abuse workshops, financial abuse, and just tips on seniors, what seniors should do if they ever encountered with someone coming to their house. We've had situations where we've foiled situations where folks are trying to take advantage of seniors and constantly calling them or putting stuff under their door. And so it's not specific. I mean, we don't have any brownstones in East New York, but we are a predominantly 65% East New York is nothing but
It's
homes,
nicer.
homes,
Hmm.
and uh, and NYCHA actually makes up a smaller part of our district. It's probably about 20% of the housing in our particular district. But East New York is predominantly a home ownership community,
Hmm.
and you have a lot of seniors. I mean, we're actually different to our neighbor Brownsville, which is heavily NYCHA. But yeah, but we do have a lot of home. A lot of the homeowners in East New York are owned by seniors, elderly folks.
So
And
do you also go in and say, because the biggest issue I found when speaking with elderly neighbors and things of that nature, there's always that problem where their kids don't want to take on the responsibility, and so now they're left with all of that responsibility. So do you also take a little bit charge in trying to educate the families of the elderly in order to assist them with that part?
yeah, we've jumped in and educated, whether it's an apartment or a house. We've jumped in because we've seen situations where seniors have actually been lost their what they call the right to even manage their own affairs. Excuse me,
Right.
to manage their own affairs. And we've seen where people have actually, uh, adult protective services have stepped in, and guardianship has gone to an agency that doesn't even understand the senior, and all they're concerned about is putting that senior in a particular housing or getting them out of the situation that they're in. And I stress the urgency on children, especially for their parents, elderly parents, to step up and step in, because you are in jeopardy of basically losing, especially if it's a house. It's an estate in a sense. We're talking
Right.
about legacy, financial legacy, you
Exactly.
name it. So it's real deep. So I encourage, get involved. Children should definitely get involved. And if not, if there's someone that wants to get involved that is trustworthy and able and wants to help, and and they're not going to take advantage, work with them to avoid your parents from losing their home.
That's great. I love that. So listen, I still, keep a little bit of a pulse on my community still, although I
That's
have
good.
been somewhat removed. So I'll definitely send some people your way, if anything.
Yes,
So
please do.
of course. So I did want to ask, what do you think is at the root of poverty in the Black community?
Well, I mean, obviously, we have the black community has dealt with has a lot of disparities that exist, and I am in the midst of, I believe, systemic racism is the root. You never
Mhm.
blame the victim who has been victimized for over 400 years, and thus the victimization has passed on from generation to generation to generation. So when we talk about systemic racism and how it has affected and it has infected our community, we have to look at it on every level: education, economics, healthcare, and even when it comes to the criminal injustice system, and also the law enforcement, the modern day Ku Klux Klan law enforcement that exists. So when we talk
Mhm.
about poverty and we talk about how our communities are over policed, that leads to poverty. That leads to the constant stigmatization of the black and brown folks when folks are given summons or that then turn into warrants, or folks who are, you jump a turnstile and you get a warrant, you get a summons and it turns into a warrant. You know, these are things that lead to continuous poverty in the black and brown community.
That's an amazing analysis, and I would definitely agree, right? There are so many outside factors that come into our community and affect us, and we're like, I want to say exclusive on this, right? Like everything is affecting us on
That's right.
multiple levels, on global levels, on national levels. Everything is focused on keeping us very oppressed. And part of that is that economic factor, is that poverty factor, right?
That's
So
true.
I did see that you had a little bit of hand in like the Black Lives Matter and a couple of other advocacy groups outside of your own. And so I did want to ask you, how is crime and violence linked to poverty? How can you see that correlation?
Well, crime and violence, obviously, and it goes back to over policing, and it goes back to never blaming the victim. You know, there's this
Mhm.
saying, and I hate to use the term, what they call it, black on black crime. I find it to be racist, and I find it we have there's violence throughout this entire country, and
Correct.
and there is violence in our communities too, and we have to deal with that internally as a village. But when you have communities that has historically been oppressed, we're dealing with over policing, I'm gonna constantly play on that, how that affects, the just the dynamics of the community, and not only that, but yes, the crime that does exist has a psychological effect on our community, and what it does is it strangulates our community. Let's be real. If you have a young black man who may have a child who loses his potential in his life at the tender age of 20 or 19 because of gun violence, who has to take care of that child? Who's left to take care of that child? The apparatus is not there in other communities. We don't have, it's like a saying, when the economy gets bad, they always say, America gets a cold and we get the flu. Uh,
Hmm.
it is true. It is true. We have had the flu for years. And the only thing we've gotten in a response to dealing with it has either been over policing, law enforcement, or they think that the criminal justice system is the answer for the social ills in our community. It's like you know what you did. You created the situation. You put us in this fishbowl, but now you
Right.
think your only response and your answer is to continue to destroy us by putting us in, incarcerating us, and not educating us.
Correct, correct, correct. So how have you been had like somewhat of a hand in eradicating some of those issues?
Yeah, well, we brought light to the fact of like recently when they had the social distancing. Myself, a good friend of mine, Reverend McCall, we led and making sure that putting pressure on the mayor to make sure that the NYPD did not enforce social distancing because that was a big debacle. They was beating people up, brutalizing the black and brown folks throughout East New York, throughout the city. And we said, how is it that folks who have historically have been looked at as as an occupying force in our community, give them that responsibility to now enforce a health matter on us. It didn't work, and we saw what the effects were, and we're glad we were able to convince the mayor through protests, through civil disobedience, that he needed to change his course, and that it wasn't gonna it wasn't go- it wa- wasn't it wouldn't have been productive to continue down that course. Hello, I guess. So, hey Queen, how you doing? Can you hear me? Hello. Hello. Okay, having some technical difficulties. I hope they get back on track.
Hey, I don't know what
Yes.
happens.
Oh, I was trying to figure it out. I said, wait a minute, did she go on a bathroom break or she just
No
forgot to tell me
way.
she was going on a break? I said, I've never. Well, you know what? Thank, thank God for the comeback. Thank God for the comeback. I
Oh,
think we got to laugh that one off. But I
Jesus.
was trying to.
Well, I'm glad that
I
you
continued
finished.
to answer the question.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna abandon the ship.
Oh, I appreciate you. I think StreamYard is like low key against me. I'm not sure what's up. This is the second time I done had issues with StreamYard. I don't know what's going on.
Okay,
But let's hop back into it.
okay.
So I'm sure you finished answering this question, so we'll move on. I did see that on your Instagram, you had something where you were doing like a food drive or something, but you were talking about like the importance of the census. So I did want to figure out or find out for our audience what the census is, because I feel like a lot of us in the community don't understand what it is and why it's so important. So can you shed a little bit of light on that?
Yeah. Well, the U.S. Census basically is a count. It's a body count of everybody in your community, and basically what that body count then does, it trickulates into dollars and cents that comes from the federal government. You know, every year the federal government, Congress, the president proposes a budget, Congress passes the budget goes to the president signs the budget. Well, the monies that come from the federal government are then doled out to different states. And they look at the population count in each state to make the determination on how much money that particular state may get.
Mm-hmm.
Also, too, which is also important too, is the fact that your congressional representative, the apportionment number, which is the population of the congressional district, is also based off of the body count. So the more body counts is really better, and the more accurate body count is really better for our state because we send off so much money to the federal government, but we get back so little because so often, every 10 years, our count is inaccurate and it doesn't reflect the actual population that exists here in this New York State. So I believe last census count, we actually lost congressional seats, two or is it one or two congressional seats because they said our population decreased, and that was truly based solely based off of them getting an accurate count.
Mm. So how are some ways that we can like make sure that those kinds of things don't happen? Like having the community actually understand like, yo, the census is not against you. No one's trying to like
Right.
steal your data. Like
Well, I mean, that's something that's very important. Obviously, with this scary president in D.C., it was, they were there was we had to take him to court because he was trying to put an immigration question on the census. And that scared a lot of people because knowing this president and how he's so anti-immigration, folks
correct.
were afraid that they were going to use this use that question as a means to deport folks, to locate and deport folks. So we're glad that, thank God, that the Supreme Court adjudicated in our favor, in the people's favor, and that question was extricated from, wasn't even allowed to be put on the census. But and more importantly, too, outside of putting a gun to someone's head and saying, Fill out the census, get it back, send it in the mail,
Right.
do it online. There's so much events that were going on. There's mailings. You get stuff you get the census through the mail. It's online. Just sit down and fill it out. I mean, just sit down, take the time, and fill it out. We have to. Oh, sorry, guys. We have to look at it. We've been having so many errors, but
We having
nevertheless,
such good
there's
conversation. That's what it is.
good conversation. Black don't crack, nothing cracks with black folks involved. But let me say this. So just fill it out, get involved in the process, understand that, it's important. And when we talk about losing dollars and we don't have this in our community, we don't have that in our community, it is solely based off of the money we're getting from the federal government. Because keep in mind, we should be getting a large portion of money from the
Hmm.
federal government with the population we have and the amount of taxes we send off. So why not get a good return on your buck? And even if you're not paying taxes, even if you're not paying taxes,
Right.
we still need the body counts because you're utilizing public services, transportation,
Hmm.
whatever it may be. It's whatever government service you may utilize. We need those funds, and we need those
Correct.
funds to reinvest back in communities that have been, dealt with disparities for historically.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what are some ways that us outside of like, politicians and activists, like everyday people like me and, my sister, somebody, how can we get involved in trying to assist with some of these issues that you guys are trying to combat with poverty?
But I would say, social media is really the way of life nowadays. And
Hmm.
if you're not in tune with what's going on social media, you're really lost. You actually get more information on social media than you get on TV. So for those folks who are able and are connected to their social media, utilize it in a positive manner to get information
Hmm.
out and to get information and then repost it and put it out. So many flyers, there's so many events and activities that are taking place. So I would just encourage folks to utilize their social media and take advantage of the information that is coming from it and repost it and get it out. You never know who you're going to impact, who you're going to affect, and who needs that information.
Nice, 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 nice. So, one last thing that I did see on your Instagram as well is that you were running for state assembly, something of that nature. You were running for something?
Wow. Yes, I actually had, and I'll just give you a real. I ran for this New York State Assembly back in 2012. I ran for
Mm.
quite a couple of offices here in East New York. There's a need for new leadership, and I'm committed to that. And I've just been building a coalition with folks who in East New York who just want government to work for them, and want folks want their local electeds to be accountable to them. So I've ran, I've won, I've lost, and we've had a good amount of victories. I'm still young, still gonna continue to do some running. Recently, I ran for the male district leader and a couple of delegate positions and the presidential delegate positions. I won a few, I lost a few, but I'm engaged, and I think if I can be an example to anybody that you stay engaged whether you lose or win an election. It's not about the title, it's about the protest and the action, and it's about activating your activism.
I love that. That was such a great way to end us out. Thank you so much for being on the show and bearing with our technical difficulties.
It's all right.
So please, please, please let everyone know where they can contact you.
Yes, you can follow me on Banking on Banks, which is my Instagram, and you can follow me on Chris Banks on Facebook. And those are the best ways right now with this pandemic going on to reach me. And those are the best ways to kind of get information to me. Always feel free to DM me on any information, any issue, any injustice. We're able to assist you and fight for you.
Oh, so if I'm ready to come over there and start some financial classes and workshops, you're the person to talk
Yes,
to?
you can definitely reach me, and we'll set it up. Listen, there's so many folks in need of information here in East New York, and we'll definitely be able to. I have a host of relationships with principals, businesses. Living here all my life, I mean, I've been able to develop a wealth of networks within our village. So,
Mhm.
it's here. It's accessible. Just reach out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Chris. You have an amazing rest of your day.
You too. You take care and thank you for the interview.
Absolutely. Have a good night.
All right.
So, Royals, I would love to bring guests on the show to talk about financial topics in your community that you care about. So, email me at queenblueprinttv@gmail.com. Drop me a line on Instagram at the Queen Blueprint. Thank you so much for tuning in and bearing with us during that very weird technical difficulty. My apologies on that. I'm Queen Candace, your favorite money management specialist. Until next time, stay royally resilient, y'all.